Sarah had always been an animal lover. From the time she was a little girl, her family had pets, cats, hamsters, and even a parakeet named Polly, who could mimic the sound of the phone ringing. Now, as an adult living in a cozy little house on Maple Street, she felt that something was missing. The joy that pets brought her as a child had faded into memories, and she longed for a furry companion to fill her home with laughter and love again. One sunny Saturday morning, Sarah decided it was time. She grabbed her keys and headed to the local animal shelter. As she drove, she imagined what kind of dog would be perfect for her. Would it be a small one that could curl up on her lap, or a big one that could protect her? She hoped to find a dog that needed her just as much as she needed it. When Sarah arrived at the shelter, the excitement was overwhelming. There were so many dogs barking and wagging their tails, each one hoping for a chance at a new home. She walked down the rows of kennels, looking into each one with curiosity. Some dogs were jumping with joy, while others looked shy and timid. Then she spotted him, a scruffy little mixed breed with big brown eyes and floppy ears. He sat quietly in the corner of his kennel, watching everyone pass by. Something about his gentle gaze tugged at Sarah's heartstrings. She knelt down to his level and extended her hand through the bars. The dog cautiously approached and sniffed her fingers before giving her a soft lick. "Hi there," Sarah whispered with a smile. "What's your name?" Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The shelter worker approached and said, "That's Max. He came to us as a stray, so we don't know much about his past. But he's sweet and loves to be around people." Sarah felt an instant connection to Max and knew in that moment he was meant for her. After filling out some paperwork and getting all the supplies ready, she took Max home that very day. As soon as they were inside her house, Max began exploring every corner. His tail wagged excitedly as he sniffed the furniture and checked out every room. It didn't take long for him to feel right at home. Sarah laughed when he discovered his favorite spot, right by the sliding glass door where sunlight flooded in. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah quickly learned more about Max's personality. He loved to play fetch with squeaky toys and go for long walks around the neighborhood. But one peculiar habit stood out. Max loved to dig in the backyard. At first, Sarah thought it was cute when he would scratch at the dirt with his paws after they finished playing outside. She figured it was just something dogs did for fun, or maybe even instinctively from their wild ancestors. Every time she watched Max dig energetically with his snout buried in the earth, it made her smile. However, this innocent digging soon became more frequent and deeper than she expected. One afternoon while gardening, Sarah noticed him digging furiously by a tree at the back of the yard. Curious about what he might uncover, but also nervous about what mess he could create, she called out to him. "Max, what are you doing over there?" she said playfully while wiping dirt off her hands. Max paused for just a moment before continuing his excavation, as if he was on an important mission. Intrigued, but slightly exasperated, Sarah decided to keep an eye on him while finishing up her planting tasks. After several days of seeing Max dig nearly every time they went outside together, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if he might find something interesting buried beneath all that dirt. Something beyond just sticks or leaves. That night after dinner, while curled up on the couch with Max sleeping peacefully by her feet, Sarah thought about all those times he dug in the backyard. Perhaps he uncovered some old toys or even bones from other pets who once played there. The thought made her giggle. "Maybe you're onto something special," she whispered softly to Max as he twitched in his sleep. Little did Sarah know that soon enough, Max would reveal secrets from the past. Secrets that would astonish not only Sarah, but everyone in their neighborhood too. As the days passed, it became clear that Max was more than just a dog. He was a bundle of joy and energy. Every morning, as the sun peeked through the curtains, he would leap onto Sarah's bed, his tail wagging wildly. With a playful bark and a nudge from his wet nose, he would urge her to wake up and start the day. It was as if he had a built-in alarm clock that came with an extra dose of happiness. Max thrived on attention and loved being involved in everything Sarah did. Whether she was cooking dinner or tending to her plants, he was right there beside her, curious about every movement. If Sarah dropped a spoon or a piece of food, Max would be quick to snatch it up as if he were on a scavenger hunt. His playful antics brought laughter into the house and filled it with life. The two shared many adventures together. In the afternoons, Sarah would take Max for long walks around the neighborhood. He would scamper ahead, nose to the ground, exploring every scent that wafted by like a detective on a mission. His big brown eyes sparkled with excitement as he greeted everyone they met, people and dogs alike, with friendly barks and wagging tails. But it was during their time in the backyard that Max truly shined. The small patch of grass and dirt became his kingdom, where every day was an opportunity for exploration. At first, Sarah enjoyed watching him chase after butterflies or roll in the grass with sheer delight. However, it wasn't long before she noticed his odd fascination with digging. "What do you think you're looking for down there?" She would often chuckle while watching him burrow his snout into the earth like an eager archaeologist uncovering ancient treasures. Max would kick up little clouds of dirt as his paws flung soil in all directions, leaving behind small holes that resembled tiny craters. At first glance, it seemed like innocent playfulness. But soon it became apparent that this habit was more than just casual digging. It was something deep within him, driving his need to explore. There were days when Max dug so intensely that he would come back inside covered from head to paw in dirt. Sarah couldn't help but laugh as she grabbed a towel to clean him off afterward. "Max, you look like you've been rolling around in mud," she would exclaim, trying to suppress her giggles while wiping the loose dirt from his fur. Despite the mess he made, Sarah found great amusement in his digging exploits. It was endearing to see how determined he was to conquer every inch of their yard. She often wondered if he could sense something unusual buried beneath the surface. Off must, old toys perhaps, or maybe even forgotten treasures lost by previous residents of their home. One sunny afternoon, as Sarah relaxed on a lawn chair with a book in hand, she watched as Max devotedly dug at a spot near an old oak tree. His tail wagged furiously, as if each scoop of earth unearthed hidden gems waiting to be discovered. Intrigued by his persistence, Sarah set her book aside and decided to join in on the fun. "All right, buddy," she said with enthusiasm while kneeling beside him. "Let's see what you've got." Together, they worked at unearthing whatever mystery lay just beneath the surface. As they dug side by side, Sarah felt a sense of joy wash over her. She wasn't just bonding with her dog, they were partners on this little excavation adventure. Just then, Max suddenly paused mid-dig and began barking excitedly at what appeared to be something shiny peeking out from the dirt. With wide eyes and racing hearts, both Sarah and Max leaned closer to investigate the strange object that had caught his attention. "Could this be what I think it is?" Sarah wondered aloud as she reached down to grab hold of whatever Max had uncovered. The familiar rush of curiosity bubbled within her as she carefully brushed away more dirt from around the mysterious object. Little did they know that this moment marked the beginning of a journey filled with surprises. One that would lead them both to uncover stories from long ago hidden beneath their feet. As weeks turned into a routine, Sarah found herself mesmerized by Max's endless enthusiasm for digging. At first, she merely considered it part of being a dog. After all, many dogs had that innate impulse to explore and uncover their surroundings. Yet as Max continued to dig deeper and more frequently, Sarah's initial acceptance began to shift into something more curious. Every time they stepped into the backyard, Max would race to his favorite spots, tail wagging furiously as he scratched at the dirt with his paws. His determination seemed almost comical, like a child on an adventurous quest. At times, Sarah would lean against the fence and watch him, a smile spreading across her face as she wondered what he could possibly be looking for beneath the surface. "Maybe you think there's buried treasure down there," she teased one sunny afternoon, leaning down to scratch behind his ears while watching him work. Max paused briefly, glanced up at her with those big brown eyes that sparkled with mischief, then resumed digging frantically as if he were trying to prove her right. Despite her laughter, a small seed of curiosity was planted in her mind. What if he really did uncover something interesting? The neighborhood was rich in history. After all, Maple Street had been around for decades. Could there be remnants of the past waiting just below the grass? Every time Max kicked up dirt or unearthed an odd-looking rock or stick, Sarah's imagination took flight. One day, while enjoying her morning coffee on the patio, she grabbed her notebook and began jotting down thoughts on possible treasures Max could find. Old toys? Hidden coins? Maybe even an ancient artifact? She mused aloud, giggling at the thought of them stumbling upon something like a pirate's chest full of gold doubloons. Her whimsical predictions filled her with excitement and made every session of digging feel like a mini-adventure waiting to happen. Yet as days passed, it became apparent that despite her light-hearted approach to his behavior, there was an underlying sense of anticipation building within her. Sarah's friends often asked about Max during their visits. "How's he settling in?" they would inquire. With a twinkle in her eye and laughter bubbling from her lips, she'd recount stories about his playful antics and this newfound obsession with digging. "You wouldn't believe how much dirt he gets everywhere," she'd say with a chuckle. Yet, increasingly, she couldn't shake off the notion that maybe there was more than just soil underneath their yard. The idea nagged at her every time Max clawed at the ground with fervor. It was thrilling to think about what mysteries might lie below. A time capsule from when families had picnicked under the oak tree decades ago, or perhaps remnants of childhood games played by children long grown up. The more she thought about it, the more she felt compelled to explore along with him. One sunny Saturday afternoon, after finishing some household chores, Sarah decided to join Max outside instead of simply observing from afar. "Okay, boy," she announced with determination while kneeling beside him near the old oak tree that seemed to have stood there forever. "Let's see what you've got." With renewed energy, they dug together, Max enthusiastically pawing at clumps of dirt, while Sarah carefully removed loose soil around whatever caught his eye. As they worked side by side in their little excavation project, laughter floated through the air. "Just think," Sarah said playfully as they took turns digging pauses for breaks. "If we find something cool enough, we could make our own treasure map." At that moment, it felt like anything was possible, their imaginations running wild amidst shovels and dirt piles under sun-kissed skies. Yet deep inside her heart rested an inexplicable feeling. What kind of discoveries awaited them beneath mere inches of dirt? As Max continued digging away enthusiastically beside her without a care in the world, his joy infectious. It only solidified Sarah's desire to embrace this journey further and truly understand what lay hidden underfoot. Little did they know that their playful excavations would soon lead them both not only into uncharted territory, but also unveil stories intertwined with generations past. A journey that would change both their lives forever. One evening, after a long day spent gardening and enjoying the sunshine, Sarah decided to take a break and read a book on the patio. Max, ever the explorer, had been out in the backyard for most of the day, digging furiously at his favorite spot near the old oak tree. Sarah couldn't help but chuckle as she watched him toss dirt into the air with each excited paw swipe. However, she also grew slightly concerned as Max seemed more focused than ever before, pawing persistently at the ground. As the sun began to set and painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Sarah realized it was time for dinner. She stood up from her chair, stretching her arms above her head and glancing at Max, still engrossed in his task. "Max, time to come inside," she called out cheerfully, expecting him to race back toward the house as he usually did. But today was different. Instead of bounding toward her with enthusiasm, Max continued digging deeper, absent-mindedly barking at whatever lay hidden below him. Sarah's amusement turned into worry as she watched him becoming increasingly absorbed in this task. "Come on now, you need to eat," she urged again, trying to keep her tone light despite the growing concern in her chest. With no response from Max except for another determined dig, she walked over to him. The closer she got, the more she could see how deep he had dug. A small crater was forming where he was focused. That wasn't like him at all. Usually, he would respond to her voice and abandon whatever fascinating thing he was pursuing. "Max," she called once more in a firmer tone. She reached down to check on him. Sarah noticed dirt lodged between his paws and little flecks of mud splattered across his face. The sight made her smile momentarily. It was always amusing to see how enthusiastic he could get about dirt. But it quickly faded into worry again. "All right," she said gently while kneeling beside him. "What have you found that's so interesting?" With a swift motion, Sarah started to clean some of the dirt off his snout while peering into the hole he had created. To Sarah's surprise, she began to see something shiny amidst the dark earth, something catching glimmers of the setting sun's rays. It almost looked like glass or metal buried deeper within the soil. Max paused briefly, as if sensing her curiosity about what lay underneath, and poked at the earth again with renewed energy. "Hey, boy," Sarah encouraged, a mix of excitement and caution fluttering within her. "Let's take a look at what you've got down there." She carefully knelt beside Max, using both hands to brush away loose dirt around the shiny object. As they worked together, a sense of anticipation bubbled up inside Sarah. The idea that they might be unearthing something truly special was exhilarating. But then, just as quickly as it arose, a pulse of anxiety flashed through her mind. What if it was something dangerous? As they continued digging together under excitement's spell and worry's shadow, Max barked excitedly and pawed frantically toward whatever awaited them below. Sarah could hardly contain herself. She wanted desperately to see what this discovery might be. "Okay," she murmured while leaning closer as she finally exposed more of the object and glimpsed its shape through the dirt. The outline looked like an old rusted box adorned with intricate designs. Yet just before they could uncover it entirely, her instincts kicked in again. She suddenly realized how deep Max had gone into his excavation. "Max," she exclaimed with urgency now flooding through her voice. "We should probably stop for now and come inside. The mysterious box could wait until morning. Perhaps they needed some fresh eyes, or maybe even a neighbor's help, before going any further. After all, Who knew what treasures or curiosities Max had found? It would be worth investigating again with a plan. Reluctantly, still unsure whether to continue exploring or heed caution's call, she took one last look at their discovery before guiding Max away from his digging site. The last rays of sunlight shined on them as they headed inside together. It felt bittersweet not knowing what lay below, but exciting anticipating their journey ahead. That night, as they settled down together on the couch after dinner, Max curled up beside her with his head resting comfortably on her lap. Despite her initial worries earlier that evening about their exploration in the backyard and what it could bring next time, Sarah couldn't help but smile at what tomorrow might unveil. Unexpected adventures awaited them both, just beneath their feet. The next morning, Sarah awoke with a sense of excitement bubbling inside her. She couldn't wait to see what Max had unearthed from the backyard the night before. After quickly preparing her breakfast, she opened the sliding door and called out, "Max, let's see what treasures you found." Max bounded out of the house, his tail wagging as he raced toward the backyard. The sun was shining brightly, illuminating the soft earth where he had been digging. As Sarah stepped outside, she immediately noticed that the scene was quite different from what she had left behind the previous evening. Where there had been just a few scattered piles of dirt, there was now a small collection of unusual objects laid out before them. Sarah's heart raced as she approached the site where Max had been so eagerly digging. Her eyes widened in astonishment at the sight before her. In front of her lay a pile of various items. Some looked like they were from long ago, while others appeared more recent. There was an old metal toy car with rusted wheels, its paint chipped but still holding hints of bright red and blue. Next to it was a broken pocket watch, its glass cracked but still gleaming faintly in the sunlight. She picked it up gingerly, marveling at how such a small thing could have once belonged to someone who wore it on their wrist. Beneath those items lay something wrapped in cloth, an old handkerchief that looked delicate and faded. Curiosity piqued. Sarah gently unfolded it to reveal a set of 3 shiny coins, glimmering like little sunbursts against the dirt. Each coin bore strange markings that she couldn't quite decipher, but found utterly fascinating. "Wow, Max, look at all this," she exclaimed joyfully, kneeling beside him as he wagged his tail vigorously in response to her excitement. It was as if he understood the significance of their find, sharing in her awe and delight. As she continued to sift through the items he had uncovered, Sarah discovered a small figurine, a tiny carved horse made from wood that had seen better days, but still held an air of charm. She imagined a child playing with it long ago and felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. Where did all this come from? Sarah wondered aloud, trying to piece together the story behind each object. Perhaps they were remnants from a family that once lived in this neighborhood, or toys left behind by children who had grown up and moved away. Max sniffed around excitedly, as if urging her to dig deeper into the history waiting to be unveiled beneath their feet. It was incredible to think that just yesterday, Sarah had merely observed Max's digging habits with curiosity. Now she was confronted with tangible pieces of history right in her own backyard. With each new discovery, her imagination ran wild. What other secrets might be hidden below? She felt compelled to learn more about these artifacts and their possible origins, but also knew there was more work to be done today. "All right," she said decisively after gathering all the items together on a nearby blanket she had spread out on the grass for their findings. "Let's take these inside and take a closer look at them." As they walked back into the house with their treasures laid carefully on the blanket, Sarah felt a surge of excitement, not just for what they had found, but for what their next adventure might bring. organic, seemed like there were stories waiting to be discovered at every turn with Max by her side. Once inside, she set about cleaning each item carefully. The coins sparkled under the kitchen light as Sarah wiped away dirt and dust that had accumulated over time. She noted how everything seemed so old, yet preserved enough for her to enjoy examining them closely. Maybe we could even find out more about these, she mused, while rinsing off the toy car in warm, soapy water. I can take photos and do some research online. Her heart raced at the thought of unraveling the mysteries behind each piece. With Max lying at her feet, contentedly watching her work on their newfound treasures, Sarah felt an undeniable bond forming, not just between them, but also with the history they were beginning to uncover together. Little did they know that these seemingly random objects would lead them down paths filled with rich stories from generations past, stories that would not only deepen their connection, but also transform their everyday lives into something extraordinary. After gathering all the items Max had unearthed, Sarah felt a rush of excitement about uncovering their stories. She set the collection on the kitchen table, eagerly preparing to investigate each piece more closely. With Max lying comfortably at her feet, she pulled out her phone and began searching for information about the coins, the toy car, and the pocket watch. First, she picked up one of the shiny coins. It was slightly tarnished, but still revealed intricate designs that hinted at its age. "Let's see what you are," she murmured as she closely examined it. After a few taps on her phone, she discovered that it was an old penny from the early 1900s, a time when things were quite different than today. The thrill of holding a piece of history in her hand sent shivers down her spine. Next, Sarah turned her attention to the pocket watch. It had a delicate engraving on its surface, beautiful swirls that told stories of craftsmanship from long ago. As she gently opened it, the insides revealed gears that appeared well preserved despite its cracked glass. She wondered who it had belonged to and what moments it had witnessed throughout the years. "Max," she said with a smile. "This could have been someone's cherished possession." Max looked up at her with his big brown eyes, as if he understood her excitement and shared in her curiosity. Then came the toy car. The bright colors peeking through layers of dirt made it look like it had once brought joy to a child playing in their yard. Sarah imagined happy laughter echoing through time as kids raced their cars across imaginary tracks. She took a moment to clean it up before setting it aside for further examination later. As she continued sifting through their discoveries, something shiny caught her eye again. A small object partially hidden beneath some dirt on the blanket where she had laid everything out. It was a rusty key that seemed too ornate for any ordinary lock. Its handle was decorated with beautiful engravings that resembled vines curling around itself. "A key? Now this is intriguing," Sarah exclaimed, holding it up to catch the light streaming through the window. "I wonder what door you belong to." Her mind raced with possibilities. Secret gardens, hidden treasure chests. Who knew what kinds of adventures this key might unlock? Finally, while brushing away more dirt from another cloth-wrapped item, Sarah uncovered a piece of jewelry. A delicate silver bracelet adorned with tiny charms shaped like stars and moons. It was slightly tarnished, but still exuded an air of elegance and beauty. "Wow, this looks valuable," she said aloud, examining each charm carefully. "I can't believe we found this." A wave of pride washed over her for both herself and Max. They were uncovering pieces of someone's life intertwined with history, with each discovery bringing new questions into her mind about their origins and past owners. Sarah felt compelled to learn even more about them all, even if unraveling these mysteries would take time. She decided right then that they needed help. Perhaps there was someone in town who could offer insight into these fascinating finds. "Let's head over to Old Man Jenkins's place later," she suggested to Max as he wagged his tail enthusiastically at her side. "He knows everything about this neighborhood. It'll be great to get his take on our treasures." After spending hours researching online about similar items and jotting down notes for reference later on, Sarah felt both accomplished and eager for more discoveries ahead. There was so much history buried beneath their feet in Maple Street. As afternoon faded into evening light, filtering through their home's windows, Sarah envisioned how much richer life had become since adopting Max, and now embarking on adventures exploring puzzles left by others long before them. With dinner preparations underway, a warm meal to share together, Sarah replayed images in her mind of future explorations alongside Max as they unraveled more stories hidden just beneath everyday surfaces around them. As they settled down for dinner later that night, surrounded by newfound treasures scattered across their kitchen table like gems waiting patiently for attention, Sarah couldn't help but feel grateful for every dig into history Max inspired within her backyard adventure. Little did they know just how deep those roots ran, or how many tales awaited discovery still waiting beneath their feet. The next day, with the sun shining brightly and a sense of purpose in her heart, Sarah gathered all the items that Max had unearthed. She carefully placed them in a small bag and decided it was time to visit Old Man Jenkins, the local historian known for his vast knowledge of the neighborhood's past. She had heard many stories about him and his ability to connect people with their roots. "Come on, Max," she called, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The adventure ahead promised to be thrilling, but she also wondered if this would lead to more questions than answers. Max barked happily in response, wagging his tail as they made their way to Jenkins's house. As they approached the old Victorian-style home at the end of Maple Street, Sarah felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. The house was charming with its weathered porch and climbing vines, just the kind of place where stories were born. She knocked on the door and waited. Moments later, it creaked open to reveal Old Man Jenkins himself. "Ah, Sarah, and you must be Max," he exclaimed with a warm smile, leaning down to scratch behind Max's ears. "What brings you both here today?" "Hi, Mr. Jenkins. I found some interesting things in my backyard that I think might have history behind them," Sarah replied excitedly as she held out her bag for him to see. Old Man Jenkins raised an eyebrow in curiosity and invited them inside. The house was filled with bookshelves stacked high with dusty old tomes, framed photographs of the neighborhood from long ago, and various antiques scattered about. It felt like stepping into a time machine. "Let's have a look at your treasures," he said as he settled into an armchair with a grin on his face. Sarah placed the items carefully on the coffee table, her heart racing at the prospect of discovering their origins. He picked up the old penny first, examining it closely under a lamp's light. "This is indeed from the early 1900s, 1912 to be exact," he noted thoughtfully before placing it back down gently. A time when this area was bustling with families moving in and children playing in these very streets. Next came the pocket watch. Jenkins' expression turned serious as he studied its intricate engravings. "This is quite lovely," he remarked. Watches like these were often passed down through generations as cherished heirlooms. He paused for a moment before continuing. "It may have belonged to someone who valued timekeeping, perhaps a father who wanted to ensure he was always there for his family." Sarah imagined that father meticulously winding the watch each morning before heading out into the world. The thought resonated deeply within her heart as she envisioned lives once lived. As he examined each piece one by one, the toy car evoking laughter from children long ago playing freely, Sarah felt increasingly connected, not only to these objects, but also to the community's history enveloping them like a warm hug. Finally, Old Man Jenkins reached for the rusty key, turning it over in his hands while studying its ornate design. "Now this is intriguing," he remarked with raised eyebrows. "This key could very well belong to one of those old houses near here, ones that may still have secrets locked away." "What sort of secrets?" Sarah asked eagerly. "Ah, well," he replied with an air of mystery. "Every key has its own story, the doors it has opened or closed over time." He leaned back slightly and smiled knowingly at her enthusiasm. Last but not least was the delicate bracelet adorned with tiny charms. Jenkins picked it up delicately as if it were made of glass rather than metal. "This piece tells us much about style during its era. Such charm bracelets were fashionable among young women." He held it up so that both Sarah and Max could see closely how beautiful it really was, despite being slightly tarnished by time. Sarah felt a sense of pride swell within her as she realized how each item connected them back through generations. Each piece carried whispers from people who once lived vibrant lives, filled with dreams and hopes, now buried beneath layers of soil, waiting patiently for discovery again. "You've done well uncovering these treasures," Old Man Jenkins said warmly, after sharing his insights on all her finds. "They hold value far beyond mere money. They represent memories and stories worth sharing." Feeling grateful for his wisdom and encouragement, Sarah nodded enthusiastically while glancing down at Max, who seemed just as captivated by their conversation, a furry companion by her side through this journey into history. As they prepared to leave Old Man Jenkins' home later that afternoon, Sarah couldn't help but feel inspired not only by what she had learned, but also excited about where their adventures would take them next. She wanted nothing more than to continue digging deeper, not just into their backyard, but also into how these discoveries would shape her understanding of life around her. With Max happily trotting alongside her on their way home, Sarah felt an undeniable bond growing stronger between them. One forged not only through shared moments, but also through uncovering pieces of history right beneath their feet, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to seek them out. As Max trotted happily alongside Sarah on their way home from Old Man Jenkins's house, she felt a thrill of excitement in the air. The treasures they had uncovered together were fascinating, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to learn about her neighborhood's history. The afternoon sun glinted off the pavement as they strolled down Maple Street, and suddenly, Sarah felt a tug of curiosity pulling her back toward Jenkins's home. "Max," she said, looking down at her furry companion, "what if we find out even more about this place? What if there are stories waiting just for us to discover?" Max barked in agreement, as if he understood her every word. Feeling invigorated by the idea, they turned around and headed back toward Jenkins's house. Once they arrived, she knocked on the door again. "Come in. I was wondering if you'd return." Old Man Jenkins called through the door. This time, Sarah found him in his study surrounded by maps and old photographs of the neighborhood. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Sarah said apologetically. "Not at all. I love sharing stories," Jenkins replied with a warm smile. "What brings you back?" "I was thinking more about our conversation earlier and how much I want to know about this neighborhood. Do you have any more stories or history you could share?" Jenkins's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Ah, you're in for a treat then. Have you ever heard of the secret garden?" Sarah shook her head eagerly, wanting to soak up every word. "No. What's that?" "Well," Jenkins began, settling back into his chair as if preparing to tell a beloved tale. This neighborhood was once home to an enchanting garden belonging to a very wealthy family during the late 1800s. They say it was hidden behind towering hedges and adorned with beautiful flowers. He gestured to an old photograph on his wall showing what appeared to be a sprawling garden filled with vibrant blossoms and whimsical pathways. It was said that this garden held rare plants brought from distant lands, ones you wouldn't typically find in your average backyard. "Wow," Sarah breathed, her imagination taking flight at the visual of such splendor nestled away from prying eyes. The family who owned it prized their privacy above all else, Jenkins continued. They wanted a place for quiet reflection and escape from the busy world outside. There was a hint of nostalgia in his voice that made Sarah wonder about those who had walked those paths long ago. "But why did they hide it?" she asked curiously. "The story goes that they experienced great loss, perhaps due to illness or tragedy," he explained solemnly. "In their sorrow, they sealed off access to this lovely sanctuary, as if preserving it within their memories." Sarah pondered on this for a moment before another thought struck her. Is there still anything left of the garden today? Jenkins nodded sagely. Rumor has it that remnants exist beneath layers of soil right where you live. Some believe that forgotten pathways may still lie hidden under grass and debris. He leaned forward slightly as excitement bubbled within him, like a child eager to reveal secrets. "And what happened to the family?" Sarah pressed. "They eventually moved away, perhaps seeking solace elsewhere, leaving behind their garden untouched for years." He paused dramatically before adding, "But every now and then, curious souls uncover pieces from its past." In that moment, Sarah felt an electric thrill race through her veins. Could it be possible that Max had stumbled upon something connected to this secret garden? The thought ignited fire in her heart as visions danced in her mind, of trailing vines covering archways leading into hidden nooks filled with color and beauty, waiting patiently for someone like them to find them again. "Max and I will certainly dig deeper," she declared passionately while glancing down at Max, who seemed just as motivated by the adventure ahead. Old Man Jenkins chuckled heartily at her enthusiasm before handing Sarah one of his old maps showing the layout of homes and gardens from decades past. "Follow your instinct. Explore every corner of your backyard." His voice took on a tone of mentorship that made her feel inspired. With gratitude shining in her eyes and dreams swirling around possibilities yet unknown ahead, the allure of adventure beckoned them both forth like stars guiding lost travelers home. As she left his cozy study with renewed purpose alongside Max, the promise of uncovering not just items but entire histories lingered sweetly between them. A friendship forged through curiosity, leading them into exciting discoveries yet unseen. Adventures woven amidst roots, intertwining with their own lives, awaiting revelation just beneath everyday surfaces. Back at home after her enlightening visit with Old Man Jenkins, Sarah felt a bubbly sense of excitement welling up inside her. The thought of the secret garden hidden beneath layers of soil in her own backyard sent her imagination spiraling. What else could be buried there? Her mind raced with possibilities as she poured herself a glass of lemonade and sat down on the porch steps with Max by her side. "Just think about it, Max," she said, gazing into the distance as the sun began its descent. There could be old toys that kids lost while playing, maybe even letters or journals left behind by people who lived here long ago. Perhaps even remnants of that beautiful garden. Max wagged his tail enthusiastically, as if he too could feel the thrill coursing through Sarah's veins. She laughed softly, wondering if he understood her words or felt the same pull toward adventure. "Should we dig some more?" she pondered aloud, excitement painting her voice with enthusiasm. What if we find an old pathway leading into that garden? Or even a forgotten nook filled with flowers still blooming? Imagining a vibrant scene surrounding them. A patch of wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze while butterflies danced flitting through the air. Her heart soared with joy. She envisioned herself spending afternoons there, losing track of time as they explored every inch together. As dusk settled over Maple Street, casting soft shadows across their yard, Sarah's thoughts drifted back to what Jenkins had said about the family who once owned the garden. The mystery of their loss lingered in her mind like a delicate whisper. She wanted to honor their story and perhaps continue it in some way. Wouldn't it be wonderful to unearth not just physical items, but also memories woven into the very fabric of their neighborhood? With renewed determination sparking within her, Sarah looked down at Max. Let's start planning our next expedition. We'll mark out areas we want to dig in and see what surprises await us. The gust idea excited both of them. Sarah grabbed some notepaper from inside and began jotting down notes for their treasure map. She drew a quick layout of their backyard, sketching out all the places where Max had already dug and imagining where to explore next. Here's where you've been digging deep. She pointed to one corner on her map, chuckling at how much dirt he managed to throw around. And this spot might hold a few secrets too, she added while marking a different corner filled with thick grass that looked untouched. As she marked each location, visions flooded her mind. Finding something valuable, hiding under cobwebs, or pocketing an old relic that would tell stories about lives lived long before hers ever began. The anticipation made her heart race again. She could hardly contain her enthusiasm. Tomorrow morning, she declared with excitement bubbling in her chest. We'll get started bright and early. Max barked eagerly in response, as if trying to communicate his agreement with Sarah's plan, while nudging his nose against her hand affectionately. As twilight settled further into nightfall, they headed indoors after gathering supplies for the next day's adventure. A small shovel, buckets for collecting treasures, and even an old camera to document their journey together. The next morning dawned crisp and bright, perfect for digging. After breakfast, Sarah grabbed her supplies, while Max danced around her feet impatiently. They set up a cozy area in the backyard, where they'd begin their explorations. Okay, Max, let's start right here. Sarah pointed at one location, rich with dirt from previous digs, but still looking promising for more discoveries. Together, they sank into their task. Max, eagerly digging with his paws, while Sarah carefully sifted through loose earth, trying not to disrupt Max too much. Each scoop brought new excitement as dirt flew and tiny rocks fell away, revealing more than just soil beneath. It was during one such moment, while cleaning off another small trowel full of mud, that Sarah noticed something unusual glimmering among the dirt. A reflection catching the sunlight in vibrant hues, unlike anything she'd seen before. Max, look at this, she cried out joyfully as she leaned closer toward whatever it was peeking from below the surface. Their escapade into history promising yet another surprise, waiting just beneath layers and they never knew existed. Little did they know that each uncovering would add threads woven intricately into stories lost, yet ready to be rediscovered. All thanks to Max and Sarah, embarking on adventures steeped in curiosity, waiting patiently beneath everyday surfaces around them. The sun rose bright and cheerful the next morning, illuminating Sarah's backyard with a warm glow as she prepared for the exciting adventure ahead. After breakfast, she gathered all their supplies: a small shovel, buckets, a trowel, and her camera to capture moments of discovery. Max trotted beside her, tail wagging in anticipation, as they headed to the spot on the map that Sarah had marked for their digging. "All right, Max, this is where we start today," Sarah exclaimed, pointing to the corner of the yard where she believed remnants of the secret garden might still be hiding. The grass was thick there, untouched by Max's previous explorations, and it felt like a promising location for their excavation. As they began to dig, Sarah could feel her heart racing with excitement. Each scoop of soil revealed pebbles and roots tangled together, but she remained hopeful. The thrill of uncovering something from the past kept her motivated. Max, ever enthusiastic, dug alongside her, sending clumps of dirt flying into the air. "Good job, buddy," Sarah encouraged him as he uncovered a small piece of pottery. "Look at this. We might be onto something." She picked up the shard of what appeared to be an old flower pot. It was cracked, but painted with beautiful, colorful designs that hinted at its age. This could have belonged to someone who tended the garden, she mused excitedly. With Max still digging eagerly at her side, Sarah continued to explore the area. They worked together harmoniously, each scoop revealing bits of history that seemed to whisper stories from long ago. After a while, Max suddenly paused and began barking excitedly at another spot nearby. "Max, what did you find?" Sarah rushed over to him, her heart pounding with curiosity. She knelt beside him and began to dig gently where he was pawing at the ground. Just beneath the surface, she felt something solid, a small wooden box wrapped in layers of dirt. Carefully, she unearthed it, brushing off the dirt to reveal an intricately carved wooden box with rusty hinges. "This is amazing," she gasped as she examined it closely. "I can't believe we found this." Max wagged his tail vigorously as if sharing in her joy. With great anticipation, Sarah opened the box. However, it creaked ominously as she lifted the lid. Inside lay a collection of old photographs neatly stacked together. "Wow, look at these," Sarah exclaimed as she carefully pulled out one of the photographs. It showed a family standing in what appeared to be the very garden Jenkins had described, a lush paradise filled with flowers and greenery. The faces were smiling happily, capturing a moment from a time long gone. "Max, this must be from that wealthy family who owned the garden." She turned to him with wide eyes. "Can you believe it?" As they sifted through more photographs and found a few letters dated from the late 1800s tucked inside the box, Sarah felt connected not just to those who lived there, but also to the life that had unfolded in her own backyard long before she arrived. What stories might these letters hold? She wondered aloud while reading snippets about family gatherings and celebrations that had taken place among the flowers. Excited by their findings, Sarah decided they should head back inside to carefully examine everything they had uncovered so far. "Let's take these treasures inside, where we can really dive into their stories." Once back in the cozy warmth of their home, she spread out all their discoveries on the table. The fragmented pottery pieces, the wooden box filled with photographs and letters. Each item radiated history. It felt like they had opened a door to another time entirely. As Max lay curled up at her feet contentedly watching her work on their newfound treasures, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude bloom within her heart for this unexpected journey they had embarked upon together. "This is just the beginning," she said softly, glancing down at Max with affection in her eyes. "We're going to uncover even more pieces of our community's history together." With determination ignited anew within her spirit, Sarah made plans for their next digging expedition. Her heart danced at the thought of further adventures awaiting them just beneath everyday surfaces in their backyard filled with echoes of lives lived long before theirs ever began. A few days after Sarah's exciting discoveries, she was buzzing with energy and inspiration. The photographs and letters they had unearthed revealed not just remnants of the past, but also stories that connected her to the community around her. Feeling motivated to share her findings and spark curiosity in others, Sarah decided to organize a neighborhood event. She envisioned a gathering where everybody could come together, share their own stories, and perhaps uncover treasures hidden in their own backyards. With Max wagging his tail happily at her side, she crafted posters inviting neighbors to join her for an afternoon of exploration and storytelling. "Let's see if anyone else has some surprises waiting to be found," she said excitedly as she hung the first poster on the community bulletin board at the local coffee shop. On the day of the event, Sarah sat up in the yard with a blanket spread out over the grass, showcasing the treasures they had discovered so far. She displayed the old toy car, the cracked pottery, photographs, letters, and the intricately carved wooden box, all carefully arranged to capture the attention of passers-by. As neighbors began arriving with intrigued expressions, Sarah felt a surge of excitement. Children were particularly drawn to Max, who greeted everyone with boundless enthusiasm. As families settled on the lawn, Sarah gathered everyone together to share the history behind each item. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice filled with warmth and energy. "I wanted to share something amazing we dug up in my backyard." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she held up the wooden box. This belonged to a family that lived here long ago, and it contained photographs and letters that tell wonderful stories about our neighborhood. The crowd listened intently as she spoke about Old Man Jenkins' insights regarding the secret garden, painting vivid images of what it must have been like when it thrived. "It's incredible to think there are remnants of such beauty hidden beneath our feet, waiting for someone to find them," she said passionately. As Sarah continued sharing her discoveries, members of the neighborhood began to open up about their own experiences and treasures. One neighbor pulled out an old pocket knife that had belonged to his grandfather, while another showed off a vintage bottle cap collection from an old soda shop that used to stand nearby. Little by little, conversation sparked throughout the yard, laughter mingling with shared nostalgia for the community's history. Sarah floated from group to group, encouraging children to share their adventures of digging in their gardens and what they hope to uncover next. "Who knows what treasures lie beneath your feet?" she asked playfully, pointing toward a group of eager kids who looked ready to dig deeper into their own yards. She shared tips on how to start their own treasure hunts and encouraged them to take a closer look at their surroundings. By the end of the afternoon, many attendees were animatedly discussing ideas for their own digging expeditions. Parents made plans with their children for backyard explorations, armed with shovels and buckets after witnessing Sarah's excitement and success. "It's inspiring what you've done here," an older neighbor said after listening to Sarah talk. "You've reminded us all how much our homes hold stories worth discovering." As twilight blanketed Maple Street, Max flopped down on the grass by her feet as Sarah reflected on how meaningful this day had become, not just for her, but for everyone involved. She felt proud knowing that her journey had sparked interest in others and helped weave connections among neighbors. Later that evening, as Sarah cleaned up after everyone had left, she felt a profound sense of contentment wash over her. It wasn't merely about unearthing treasures anymore. It was about fostering a sense of community pride and helping people rediscover connections to a shared history. Once everything was packed away, Sarah sat back on her porch steps beside Max, looking out over their backyard, bathed in soft moonlight. Her heart swelled with gratitude for not only the discoveries, but also for the relationships growing within her community. "We did good today, didn't we?" she whispered affectionately to Max as he nuzzled against her leg. With newfound determination, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning of her adventures. Both with Max by her side and alongside her wonderful neighbors eager to explore whatever lay hidden just beneath their own everyday surfaces. As the days passed after the neighborhood event, Sarah couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. The afternoon, spent sharing stories and discoveries, had not only brought neighbors together, but it also deepened her bond with Max in ways she never imagined. Each adventure they embarked on seemed to strengthen their friendship, filled with moments of laughter, curiosity, and unyielding joy. On a particularly sunny afternoon, Sarah and Max lounged in their backyard, surrounded by the remnants of their recent explorations. The warmth of the sun enveloped them like a cozy blanket as they basked in each other's company. Sarah closed her eyes, listening to the distant sound of children playing and birds chirping above. She reflected on how her life had transformed since adopting Max. "Can you believe how much we've discovered?" she said softly, glancing down at Max, who was resting comfortably at her feet. He lifted his head for a moment, his ears perked up as if he understood every word she spoke. "You've brought so much adventure into my life." Max responded with an enthusiastic bark, which made Sarah chuckle. She leaned down to scratch behind his ears, feeling the warmth of his fur beneath her fingers. It was during these moments that she truly appreciated how far they had come together. What started as an ordinary digging habit had blossomed into an extraordinary journey, rich with history and community spirit. Motivated by their newfound sense of mission, Sarah began making plans for their next exploration. Driven by the desire to uncover even more about the secret garden and what lies beneath their feet. She wondered if there were other spots in the yard they hadn't yet explored, or if any old pathways still existed to lead them deeper into the garden's hidden beauty. "Let's mark another area to dig today," she said eagerly, pulling out the map she'd drawn earlier in the week. She pointed to a patch of earth shaded by a large oak tree that stood proudly at one edge of their property. A perfect spot to investigate further. With Max bouncing around excitedly beside her, they gathered their digging supplies again. "Who knows what we'll find this time?" Sarah mused as she packed a small backpack with shovels and buckets, while Max seemed to dance in delight. Once they arrived at the oak tree, Sarah knelt down and began to dig patiently at the base, while Max dug beside her with boundless energy. Each scoop of earth revealed small pebbles and roots entwined together. However, she remained hopeful that something exciting awaited them once they got deeper. "I can feel it," she exclaimed playfully as she threw dirt aside. "There's got to be something special down here." As they continued working together under the shade of the oak tree, Max suddenly paused and began barking at another spot nearby. "Max, what did you find now?" Sarah rushed over to where he was focused with a gleam in his eye. Kneeling down beside him, she carefully cleared away dirt with her hands until something caught her attention through the soil, a shimmering piece of metal glinting in the sunlight. "Look at this," Sarah cried out joyfully as she unearthed it from its resting place. It was a small metal key, a beautiful antique piece adorned with delicate designs that mirrored those of the other treasures they'd discovered earlier. Her heart raced with excitement as she turned to Max. "This could open something valuable. Let's keep searching. There must be more." Fueled by anticipation, they worked tirelessly until twilight began to paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. After several hours of digging, they uncovered not just remnants, but also a sense of pride in their work. Taking part in piecing together their community's history, one discovery at a time. Finally exhausted but exhilarated, Sarah and Max settled on the soft grass under the oak tree. As they looked at everything they had found that day, the key shimmering next to pieces of pottery and flowers embedded in dirt, they both felt a wonderful bond form between them, stronger than ever before. "This is what friendship looks like," Sarah whispered softly while leaning against Max, who rested happily by her side. "You've helped me discover so much more than just old things. You've shown me what it means to explore life together." as the stars began to twinkle above them and the moon cast a gentle glow over Maple Street. Sarah felt incredibly grateful for Max's companionship and for all the unexpected surprises that came from their bond as friends embarking on an adventure filled with endless possibilities waiting just beneath everyday surfaces.